Jason Halbert had never considered himself a man of routine, but in the weeks leading up to his 32nd birthday, his life had settled into the comforting monotony of work, meals, and sleep. His apartment in downtown New Seattle was modest. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen that barely qualified as a kitchenette. Yet it was his sanctuary. A small personal universe where the only surprises were whether his coffee would taste bitter or his old plant, a spider fern named Walter, would survive another week. It was a Tuesday morning when the universe decided to intervene. Jason shuffled into the bathroom, yawning and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His reflection in the mirror was pale, hair sticking up in every conceivable direction, eyes bloodshot from yet another night spent playing VR simulations that felt more real than life itself. He flicked the light switch, and the buzzing fluorescent bulb above the mirror flickered to life. That's when he saw it. At first, he thought his brain had finally betrayed him. On the edge of the sink, standing no taller than his thumb, was a creature that defied every law of nature Jason had ever known. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver, tiny limbs delicate yet articulated with impossible precision. 2 oversized eyes, luminescent and violet, stared at him, unblinking, intelligent, and curious. Jason froze. Hi." His voice sounded absurd, bouncing against the sterile tiles. He wanted to retreat, but his feet refused to cooperate. The tiny alien tilted its head, a motion that suggested both amusement and inquiry. Then it winked. Jason's brain short-circuited. He had read about alien encounters, about close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. None of it prepared him for something this small, this alive, staring at him like he was the anomaly. "Am I dreaming?" he whispered, more to himself than to the alien. The alien hopped onto the edge of the faucet with a precision that made Jason's stomach lurch. "No." A soft, musical voice echoed inside his mind rather than out loud. The words were not spoken, they were thought, and somehow Jason understood perfectly. Jason blinked rapidly, trying to ground himself. You can talk in my head?" "Of course," the alien replied. "You're receptive. Rare, but not unique." Okay, receptive.
Got it.
So tiny alien talking in my brain. Cool. Totally normal morning. Jason's sarcasm faltered as he realized how absurd the situation was. His fingers instinctively reached for his phone, thinking to record this miracle for posterity, or maybe just to convince himself later. But the alien flicked a hand, a gesture so delicate it barely moved the air, and Jason's phone slipped from his grasp, landing with a soft thud on the bathroom mat. "No recordings," the alien said, its tone amused but firm. "Not yet, anyway. You wouldn't understand why, but you will." Jason swallowed. His throat was suddenly dry. "Okay, can you, tell me your name?" "I am Nairi," the creature said. "I come from a place you would call distant, beyond your solar quadrant, past the Veil Nebula." Jason tried to process that, but all he could think about was how tiny Nairi was. Her entire body could probably fit inside a shot glass, and yet she radiated intelligence and presence like a colossal being. Why are you here?" Jason asked. Nairi's eyes glittered like twin stars. "To observe and to help, but not in the way you expect. Your kind is remarkable. Fragile, yes, but capable. I've come because the events soon to unfold require you, Jason Halbert, to understand more than you ever imagined about humanity and yourself." Jason laughed nervously. "I'm just a guy. I work in tech support. I eat too much pizza. I'm not exactly remarkable." "You underestimate yourself," Nairi replied. Her tiny form floated midair, shimmering as if she were made of refracted light. "Your species has survived against impossible odds. Your ingenuity, your capacity for compassion, your curiosity. All of it is extraordinary. That is why I chose you." Jason's knees weakened, and he sat down on the edge of the bathtub. "Okay, let's assume I believe you. Why my bathroom?" Nairi's tiny wings, if you could call them that, fluttered in a mesmerizing rhythm. "Bathrooms are neutral. A place of transition. People are themselves here. Vulnerable, honest. It allows me to connect without overwhelming your senses." Jason exhaled slowly. He wanted to scream, to run, to lock himself in his bedroom, but part of him was captivated. He had always wanted proof of life beyond Earth. Not like this. Not miniature, talking violet-eyed proof. "Okay," Jason said cautiously. "So, what do you want from me?" Nairi hovered closer, and Jason noticed she carried a small, crystalline device no bigger than a grain of rice. "This is a communicator," she explained. "It will allow us to interact without interference from your chaotic world. With it, I will guide you to a prepare. Humanity is on the cusp of something, Jason. Choices are coming that will affect every being on your planet." Jason frowned. "Choices? Like elections?" Nairi blinked slowly, her luminescent eyes reflecting his own confusion. "Worse. Choices that could determine the fate of your species. Not just here, but across the galaxy." Jason laughed again, though it was hollow. "Me? Really? I fix Wi-Fi routers, Nairi. I don't even know how to pilot a spaceship." "You don't need to pilot a spaceship," she said firmly. "You need to see clearly, to think critically, and to act. Humanity's greatest strengths are overlooked. And it's time someone reminded you of that." The bathroom was silent for a moment, save for the hum of the fluorescent light and the distant city sounds outside. Jason felt a strange sense of awe. He had always considered himself insignificant, a small cog in a massive machine. And yet, here was a being smaller than his thumb, claiming that he had a role in shaping the future. How do I start?" Jason asked finally. Nairi floated onto his countertop and tapped the communicator. A soft, golden light spread across the bathroom, enveloping both of them. Jason felt a warm pulse in his chest, like a heartbeat that was not entirely his own. Suddenly, visions appeared before him, flashes of Earth, of humanity's triumphs and failures, of people making choices that altered the course of history in ways both grand and subtle. "This is your potential," Nairi explained. "Not as a single person, but as a species. You will see what is at stake, and you will know how to act when the time comes." Jason felt dizzy. He saw himself, standing on a stage he had never imagined, addressing people who trusted him. He saw inventions, crises, acts of courage, moments of betrayal, and glimpses of compassion that restored hope. And through it all, he felt a surge of pride he had never allowed himself before. "Whoa," he whispered. This is incredible." "It is only the beginning," Nairi said. "You will need guidance, and I will provide it. But remember, Jason, the choices you make are your own. You are not being controlled, only informed." Jason closed his eyes, letting the images wash over him. He understood something profound. The universe was vast, indifferent, and full of possibilities. And yet, humanity had a spark that could light the darkness if only someone recognized it. When he opened his eyes again, Nairi was perched on his toothbrush, wings folding neatly against her shimmering form. "You may rest for now," she said. "But tomorrow, your lessons begin. Be ready." Jason nodded, still processing everything. "Rest, right?" "Yeah." "Totally normal. Tiny alien in my bathroom. No big deal." Nairi tilted her head and winked once more before vanishing in a flash of violet light. Jason blinked, staring at the empty bathroom. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and his heart still raced. He sat on the bathtub edge for several minutes, trying to convince himself it had been real. But then he saw the communicator lying where Nairi had left it, a tiny crystalline shard glowing softly. Jason picked it up. It was cold and smooth, yet pulsing with an energy he couldn't describe. He turned it over in his hand, and a soft voice echoed in his mind. "Humanity is remarkable, Jason. Never forget that. And you are remarkable, too." The words resonated deep in his chest. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. For the first time in his life, Jason felt capable. The next day, he woke earlier than usual, the memory of Nairi vivid and alive. He prepared for work, but something had shifted. He noticed the small acts of kindness around him, the neighbor struggling with groceries, the bus driver's patient smile, the barista who remembered his usual order. The world felt larger, but also more intimate. He felt connected, part of something bigger than himself. Over the following weeks, Nairi returned intermittently, guiding him with subtle insights and visions of potential futures. Jason began to see patterns in human behavior, opportunities to influence outcomes, and ways to act that were courageous, but grounded in empathy and intelligence. His confidence grew, and so did his sense of purpose. Months later, when the first true galactic event threatened humanity, a seemingly small technological failure that could have spiraled into catastrophe, Jason was ready. His decisions, guided by the lessons from the tiny alien in his bathroom, helped avert disaster. The world never knew the role he played, but he didn't care. He had seen what humanity could be, and he had contributed to that potential. And every so often, when he brushed his teeth or washed his hands, he imagined a tiny violet-eyed figure watching him from the counter, reminding him that greatness often begins in the most unlikely places and with the most unlikely allies. Jason had gone from ordinary to extraordinary, not because of superpowers or alien technology, but because he had been reminded of what humanity could achieve and what he could achieve within it. He smiled at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, whispering, "Thank you, Nairi." And somewhere, in a distant quadrant of the galaxy, a tiny alien smiled back. Months later, when the first true galactic event threatened humanity, a seemingly small technological failure that could have spiraled into catastrophe, Jason was ready. His decisions, guided by the lessons from the tiny alien in his bathroom, helped avert disaster. No one knew the role he played, not even his closest colleagues, but he didn't care. What mattered was that humanity had survived, and, in some small way, thrived because someone had paid attention, someone had been awake when it mattered most. Life returned to its usual rhythm, but Jason was no longer the man who had shuffled bleary-eyed into his bathroom that fateful morning. He walked with purpose, noticed the small acts of kindness that made the world resilient, and found joy in the simple moments, the neighbor struggling with groceries, the bus driver's patient smile, the barista who remembered his usual order. He realized that heroism was not only in grand gestures, it was in vigilance, in empathy, and in making choices that reinforce the good. Nairi's visits became less frequent, though their impact never faded. She appeared in moments of quiet reflection, sometimes a shimmer of violet light at the edge of his vision, sometimes as a thought that nudged him toward a better choice. And every time, Jason felt the pulse of the communicator in his pocket, a reminder that even the smallest beings could leave an indelible mark on the universe. One evening, as he prepared for bed, Jason found himself in the bathroom again, staring into the mirror. The room smelled faintly of ozone, a memory of Nairi's presence. He placed a hand on the countertop, feeling the communicator's smooth surface beneath his fingers. "Humanity is remarkable," the voice echoed softly in his mind. just as it had the first morning. Never forget that. And you are remarkable, too. Jason smiled. A deep, unguarded smile, the kind that comes from knowing that you've been given a glimpse of something greater and you've risen to meet it. He realized that heroism was not a destiny handed down by fate. It was a choice, every day, in the smallest actions and decisions. He leaned closer to the mirror, meeting his own eyes. "Thank you, Nairi," he whispered, "for everything." And somewhere, far beyond the Veil Nebula, a tiny alien observed him with pride. Nairi's violet eyes glimmered like stars as she hovered over the crystalline device, knowing that Jason, and through him, humanity, had passed the first test of understanding. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of hope, ingenuity, and courage. And in this tiny human, she had found a spark worth nurturing. Jason turned off the bathroom light and climbed into bed, finally able to sleep without fear, without doubt, and without the nagging sense of insignificance. He understood now that greatness often begins in the most unlikely places and sometimes with the smallest allies. And in the quiet darkness, he dreamed not of himself, but of humanity, brave, flawed, inventive, and extraordinary. The tiny alien had reminded him of a truth he would never forget. Sometimes, the universe doesn't just notice you. Sometimes it trusts you.